As you already know, AI has been booming. Everyone's speaking about it. It's changing industries, it's changing lives. And there's big debate on what's good about it, what's bad about it, etc. And it's also affecting digital marketing. And I've come to the conclusion after speaking with certain people that many people are not really aware of the changes that have recently taken place within digital marketing, within search engine marketing, and with Google. So in this video, we're going to clarify some things, define some words, and just help you to understand the changes that have already been made and that will continue to be made moving forward past 2025. And I'm also going to explain to you the new workflow or framework for optimizing your website to be found in AI searches, not only in traditional, search. So one of the first and most prominent changes that has been made that's going to affect search going forward is the fact that Google now will use your personalized data, which is to say information from your Gmails that it collects, information from your calendars, information from, your location, etc. Just your ecosystem in general, the searches that you do in general. It's going to use that information to tailor results to you when you search in Google's AI mode. So that's the first thing. This is Google 2.0. Besides that, Sundar Pichai, which is Google's CEO, as well as Elizabeth Reed, which is the head of search with Google, they've already made it clear that Google's new AI mode feature, which in the US is an option, it's optional, it's a tab that you opt into to use. Well, they've already confirmed that that's the future of search. They've confirmed that eventually, it'll move from an optional tab to the primary search bar. So that's what you need to be optimizing for going forward. Before we go any further, be sure to go into the description box below this video to grab your digital growth blueprint, which is going to be your starting point for optimizing and auditing your website for AI searches going forward. Some of you may remember about 2 years or so ago when people started to use ChatGPT, people started discussing or debating about whether ChatGPT could potentially replace Google. And now fast forward 2 years, Google has already rolled out AI overviews, which was basically a response to ChatGPT and other LLMs. And now Google has their own LLM, essentially powered by Gemini, where they're producing answers within milliseconds instead of having you scroll through, the results pages. So those days of 10 blue links, scrolling through various pages of Google to find your answer, those days are gone. Those days of, scrolling through Google pages to read blogs to get an answer to a question, that's over with. People are now using AI to get their answer as quickly as possible. So it's important to understand that search is not only about ranking anymore, although ranking is still relevant, especially if you have a local business. And it's also relevant because it helps these AI platforms more easily find your content. But the importance of ranking is fading. And what you want to focus on now is retrieval. So the process behind AI mode and other LLMs is called RAG, which is short for retrieval augmented generation. And what it does is it's a hybrid architecture that combines information retrieval with natural language generation to produce context rich answers to whatever query someone may be searching. So it operates in two key stages: retrieval of relevant documents using semantic search, and generating responses conditioned on those documents via a large language model. So those are the two overarching primary steps to retrieval augmented generation. Use semantic search. What documents are most semantically relevant to this search is going to parse through within milliseconds, potentially hundreds and hundreds of documents to produce those that are most, again, semantically relevant. And then the second stage is producing natural language on the side of the searcher, conditioned and based on those documents to answer that searcher's question in real time or query in real time. So it's about retrieval, not just ranking. So tools like your SEMrush, your standard rank trackers are becoming more and more obsolete as time progresses, especially because Google is no longer looking at quote unquote keywords. So I said that Google is no longer looking at keywords. So let's break down a little bit what they're looking at now. Imagine Google as the world's biggest library, where you type a question and a smart translator called BERT, which is what they use, reads that particular question or query forward and backward so that it can understand the context. It can differentiate between different respective phrases such as riverbank versus money bank, etc. It knows the difference. It can tell what you're talking about. And what it does is it takes these words or phrases and combines them into a large set of, let's look at it like GPS coordinates on a giant map of meaning. And every idea or query or phrase has its own particular 3D space, and everything is enumerated. These numbers, these enumerations are known as vector embeddings. So again, they're not looking at keywords, they're looking at meaning. You can say two completely different things that don't even contain the same words. For example, myocardial infarction or heart attack. Those are two phrases that don't even contain the same words, but they have the same meaning, and they're able to discern how close in meaning different phrases and words are. So it's all about semantic optimization now, no longer just keyword optimization. I wouldn't say that keywords are completely irrelevant because they're good for understanding what overarching topic we're speaking about. But you don't want to do any keyword stuffing. That's not going to help you. If anything, that will harm you in the long run. And Google uses something called Scan, which is an open source library, to actually retrieve or find or determine what actual vectors are relevant for the search that you're making. So Scan would be the librarian is going to go search and determine what actual pieces of content are relevant for this particular query that the user has searched. So as you can clearly see, this process is completely different than what we're used to for the past, 20 years. Google is seeking to understand content semantically versus going the deterministic route based on keywords and based on a set ranking. So again, just to recap, BERT would be like the translator. It's going to read sentences both ways to understand context, make a query. Meaning. Next, you have vectors, vector embeddings, which are like coordinates on a map where related queries and ideas are close in vector space. The next you have Scan, which is like the librarian that searches to determine which vectors are most relevant for the search that you've made so that it can determine what documents are most relevant as well to retrieve. And then next you have the hybrid ranking, which are sort of like a debate team or a panel of judges, so to speak. And they're going to try to determine what are the best outputs to give. And then you have the final judge, the final authority, which is Gemini 2.5. It's going to give the short answer, give the clearest answer that it possibly can. At least that's the idea. I'm going to explain to you the process that we use, the entire process, the workflow from start to finish. I'm even going to mention some brands that you can use, some tools that you can use to help you with each stage of the process. I'm not related or affiliated with any of these brands. I'm just giving this information for your information to help you. And obviously, we can manage all of this ourselves. Our team is more than familiar with the AI optimization process. But again, this is just for your information. So the first step, something that I've been speaking about for a while, I even have a video, I believe that's still on this channel about this, is make sure your website's not blocking AI crawlers, GPT bot, different AI crawlers that would try to access your website. Make sure your site is allowing them to access it. You don't have any disavow rules. Go into your robots.txt and just make sure everything is on the up and up. And you also want to run some tests. Again, I have a video that goes into that just to make sure you can look in your server logs, and you just want to make sure you're in the clear with that. That's the most straightforward, easiest, and fastest step. Now, the next step is when you have a topic or a so-called keyword that you want to optimize your content for and be retrieved for, you want to do a topic cluster and generate a bunch of queries that are relevant to this particular topic, which is to say you want to mimic the query fan out, which is basically the process that I already went over. You want to mimic the query fan out that Google's AI mode does. And you can use tools like People Also Ask for that. You go to alsoask.com and it'll generate, and when you use the tool, it'll help you generate a bunch of queries and topics and cluster them in a way that makes sense. And you want to create your content and make sure your content is answering those particular queries, those questions, and is optimized for all of the queries or the topics or the subtopics that are based around that main topic or keyword that you're looking to rank for. That's sort of the new version of keyword research. The next step is you want to take those clusters that you've generated and create an outline based on that content. An outline that's formatted and structured in a way that's optimal for AI retrieval. You can use a tool like Surfer SEO to help you with this. You're going to turn each cluster into an outline and create semantically relevant chunks of content that, again, are digestible for these AI searches. They're going to be paragraph-sized chunks of content because LLMs love that, and they're able to easily read it, scan it, and determine if it's semantically relevant for that particular query. Now, the next step is once you've drafted your content, your copy, you want to understand what pages are being cited the most by these LLMs, these AI searches for this particular query or this relevant, this topic. And you want to audit basically your draft, your copy, to see how optimized is it for those relevant vector embeddings. Screaming Frog's new tool, the SEO Spider 22.0 is what I believe it's called. And that tool helps you determine whether or not your website is optimal for those vector embeddings. It looks at cosine similarity and helps make that determination. So that's the next step. So after you've seen that your content is not maybe as optimized as it could be for the relevant vector embeddings, and you've used a tool like the tool I just mentioned or similar, and you've re-optimized it, you've iterated multiple times, etc. Now you're ready to put that content out into the ether, out into the world, and see how it does. So you want to track how well your content does in AI searches, how often it's cited in, whether it be ChatGPT, whether it be Google's AI mode, Perplexity, etc. And you're going to track it. Now, there's different ways to do this, a plethora of different methodologies, but you could also use a tool such as Profound. Tryprofound.com is the name of the website that you can use for that as well. So that's it, straight to the point. That's the whole workflow process from start to end. And again, traditional SEO still matters. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Technical SEO, currently backlinks, press releases, digital PR, all of that is still highly relevant, but it's just becoming a smaller and smaller piece of the puzzle when it comes to overall organic search presence. Don't forget to go into the description box and grab your free digital growth blueprint. It'll help you get started with your process of optimizing or learning how to optimize your website. You can also reach out to us directly if you don't want to go through all of this work. If you feel that you don't have the time or the expertise to get all of this done properly and efficiently yourself, reach out to me directly and we can discuss your business goals and how we can help you. All right, take care.